Next question is from brother Louis 87. Can I still build muscle and lose fat even if I walk 25,000 steps a day? I work out 3 to 4 times a week and do intermittent fasting every day. I am also at a caloric deficit every day. What is your advice to do body recomposition successfully given my situation?
Let's forget all the information he gave us because then we'd have to design a routine and ask him more questions. Here's the real question. Can you lose fat and build muscle at the same time? Typically, it's very challenging, especially if you're intermediate or advanced. Like if you're really advanced, you've been working out for a while, you've been eating pretty good for a while, and then you decide to go on a cut, and you're like, I'm going to build while I cut. Like, good luck. Like, this is a very challenging thing to do. Probably not.
What do we call that? Like the Goldilocks zone?
Yeah. If you're a beginner, this happens all the time. Every single new client I trained gained muscle and burned body fat in the first few months.
There is an exception to that. The advanced or intermediate person who's been off on a layoff, right? So if I've been off for a few weeks,
well, yeah, that I would put that in the same category. They're deconditioned.
Well, yeah, so that's important though to note that because someone who's thinking that they've been training for a long time, now they think, oh, there's no chance of me doing this. This happens to me every time I go back to my training, right? So, and the way I do it is I actually don't focus on losing. I focus on building. I try and eat a maintenance caloric intake, and I go back to building.
And you let the metabolism do the job.
And I let the metabolism do the work. I figure, okay, this is my body needs. Let's say hypothetically, maintenance is 3,000 calories. I'm back to training for strength and trying to build. I'm going to eat till I'm satisfied, say 3,000 calories. And inevitably, what happens in those first couple weeks is my body starts to remember where that I had muscle. It starts to put the muscle back on, and then my metabolism starts to inevitably speed up, which ends up reducing my body fat percentage.
Yeah. So aside from the muscle memory effects, if you're consistent,
Yes.
you're advanced. Your best bet is to preserve muscle. So now, how do you best preserve muscle? That's a good question. You try to build it. The goal is always to try to build muscle because if you're trying to build muscle and you're doing it right, you're more likely to preserve muscle than if you weren't. But in a calorie deficit, it's very difficult in a calorie deficit, especially if you're advanced, to build and while losing body fat. Beginners, like I said, every client I trained as a beginner, the first few months, that's exactly what we saw.
Get those newbie gains.
Yeah, I would see them gain muscle and burn body fat, and it happened all the time.
I do think the advice to this person though is to get out of the deficit. So if your goal is to try and to build muscle and you want to lean out also, being in a caloric deficit and moving that much and training that much is not advantageous. Like it's going to be really tough for this person to build muscle right here. They're more likely to break down.
That's true. Now, are you guys familiar with, this is it's a famous study done in the 1970s, maybe late 70s, with Casey Viator and Arthur Jones, called the Colorado Experiment. I might have brought this up a long time ago.
We've talked about this before a long time ago.
Arthur Jones is the inventor of Nautilus equipment. Casey Viator, the youngest Mr. America. Back then, Mr. America was a big bodybuilding contest ever. I think he won when he was 18. This genetic phenom bodybuilder, right? Really strong, long muscle bellies, the whole deal. Arthur Jones enlisted Casey Viator in his experiment, and the experiment was to test one set to failure training on Nautilus equipment. Really what Arthur Jones was trying to do was trying to sell Nautilus equipment. And and there were people there witnessing this, and there was an actual study. And you got to see this. Maybe Doug can look this up. Look up the Colorado Experiment, Casey Viator, or just Colorado Experiment before and after. Casey Viator goes in there and he does this like insane one set to failure for an exercise with forced reps and superset, like really, really crazy stuff. He ended up gaining like 30 pounds of muscle while losing 15 pounds of fat or something crazy like that in like 60 days or something insane like that. And it was documented and it was real. And people bring that up all the time and say, oh, it's totally, look at that. Now, how long of period of time was that with before and after there, Doug? It was a very short period of time.
28 days.
28 days he did that. He gained how much muscle and lost how much fat?
63.21 pounds of muscle mass gain, according to this.
What?
Yeah. Now, this was documented. Now, here's what a lot of people don't know.
How many horse steroids was he on?
Well, here's what happened. Casey Viator is already a pro bodybuilder in that before picture. He had stopped training and probably, it's speculated, went off anabolics. So he had muscle memory
Yeah,
to use. Plus, he went on some whatever they used back in those days, D-ball deck or whatever. Then he enrolls in this thing. So he's got like crazy muscle memory.
Well, and this
steroids,
is the point I was trying to make, right? So he would be
Yes.
considered an advanced.
That's why I brought this up.
Yeah, an advanced lifter who is taking off. And I noticed this when I just take a couple weeks off. So you don't even have to be off for a very long time. I right away noticed when I've been off for a few weeks or a month or two of training consistently, or that, even just being inconsistent with my volume. My volume significantly low. I'm sporadically training. And just getting back up to my normal volume of training and back to eating correctly and getting enough protein intake and calories like I should.
And you get that transfer.
Yeah, I get that nice little build a little bit of muscle, burn a little bit of body fat. So it is possible for that. But what you're saying is so true, is that if you're somebody who's asking this question and you haven't missed a workout in 2 years and you're training, 3 to 5 days a week and you've scaled and progressively overloaded multiple different ways, yeah, really hard for that person to continue to build muscle and burn body fat.
Yep.
They've gotten most of those benefits already.